No, love to hear it, and that's exactly what we intend to do, right? We're more than just barbers, and I'm not saying that we're just barber therapists or whatever. Just know that we're more than just barbers. We're still human beings, and we want to give you not just the best experience, but we want to elevate your life in some way, shape, or form.
All right, what's up, guys? Vince and Danilo here from Adventures Within Media. Hope you guys are doing well. So the weather has been changing. You know, it's been getting warmer and warmer. We just came out of, for those of you in Winnipeg here, we just came out of a winter vortex, an Arctic vortex here. So it's been pretty cold for the last few weeks, but it's heating up. And Danilo and I have been able to finally get out and enjoy the trails and get some runs in. How do you like the run this morning, D?
Hey, so this is I think our second consecutive run in a row ever since we survived the big deep freeze. But we happened to pick one day that it decided to go minus way past minus 20. So we nearly froze several body parts off, but we survived and we're good. It was a good pump as usual, but we made it.
Yeah, and I mean, with that also, fortunately, due to the kind of the decreased numbers that we've had in terms of COVID cases, things have been opening up here. So restrictions are slowly loosening up, and with that, both of us have actually been able to get some haircuts. So I don't know, you look pretty fresh after yours. I don't know how you felt after yours, but mine had been 3 months since I had gotten a haircut, so it felt pretty good.
Complete transformation after you got yours, man. Actually, I got mine red hot off the gates, as soon as you could kind of see second or first person. As soon as the restrictions kind of loosen a little bit, I got my haircut right away. So I'm actually getting to the point where I almost need another haircut, right? But I just watched Vince get his, and it was like night and day. The guy came off the chair, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" You know?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it felt really good. Getting a haircut, and it's something we don't necessarily talk about a lot in regards to mental health, and how just a simple haircut can really have an impact on someone's life and how you feel about yourself. And luckily today, we're going to be able to speak to the man himself, the guy who gave me my haircut, my first haircut in 3 months. And we're going to be able to get some of his insights in regards to his perspective as a barber, as someone who has an impact directly on the community, with the community, and kind of hopefully get some of his thoughts on mental health and how he sees it from his perspective. So I will be introducing you guys and welcoming him to the podcast, Marvin Borillo.
Hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Marvin.
Welcome, man.
And
welcome.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining us. We had a little bit of a hectic start to the podcast, but glad you're joining us.
All good. Cool.
Yeah. So obviously, probably more people know you than either Danilo and I, since, you work at a barbershop. It's kind of like the local spot to get a lot of connections for sure. But how would you share a little bit about your background and how you came up, the highlights, and what you're doing right now?
Ooh, man, I tell my clients this pretty often, actually. You probably get a client every day, at least new clients, who say, "Oh, how'd you start barbering? Oh, how'd you start this? How'd you start that?" And then I'm gonna go through the same spiel. So I've been barbering professionally for about I'd say give or take 2 to 3 years now. Just like any barber, I'd say 99% of barbers have started in either a basement or a washroom, and that's exactly where I started. My friend is actually one of my best friends, who's my client right now. He's actually he's the one who got me into barbering and how to cut hair and everything. He showed me the YouTube videos and all of that, and I just decided that this is pretty cool and take it professionally. So in the end, I just ended up asking family, friends, "Let me cut your hair, let me do this, let me do that." I was really bad at it, but I mean, that if I wasn't to be that person before, then I wouldn't be this person today. so to say. But yeah, now I'm working at MBS since December 14th, 2019. And I went to hair school to get, official, get my apprenticeship, and now I'm actually able to take my Red Seal test very soon. But yeah, otherwise it's been pretty great, and I think there's no slowing down when it comes to barbering.
Wow, you've only been doing this for 2-3 years. That's pretty impressive. Like, I would say, like, I've been doing videography and photography for probably 5 years now, and I don't want to compare success or anything, but the fact that you're already like having clients come in, you're impacting people's lives on like a daily, if not like weekly basis. I think that's pretty powerful.
I guess I should also correct myself. Like the time where, you spend your time in like the washroom in the basement, I guess that's an accumulation of some years as well, because although you're not doing it professionally, you're still doing it technically. So maybe it's one client every month or 2 months or whatever, but I guess you could still count it as experience, if you ask me.
Fair. And I mean, yeah, you mentioned, some of your friends and family, you were kind of cutting their hair and asking them, can I cut your hair? And they were trusting you with it. And I'm sure like that's a whole process in its own. And you're probably super grateful for those people, because without them, I mean, you wouldn't necessarily be here today. I don't want to put words in your mouth or anything, but yeah, I'm curious what got you into barbering? Like, what got you into cutting hair?
Oh man, so when I was a wee lad, I used to go to Magic Cuts. I used to go to anywhere that was the cheapest. And for the people that grew up in the West End, they know what Connie's is. They know what Chorito's Salon is. They know
Absolutely.
like they know what TN Hair Salon. They know all of those places. Then for those people, they charge 10, 15, sometimes $20, and it's just an in and out experience, and you get a pretty decent haircut, something that'll last you for a couple of weeks, few weeks. But for me, it was like 3 months, because that's how neglectful I was with my hair. Like, if I'm gonna be honest, I used to get a number 3 on top with like a 1 on the side. That's like,
What the?
helmet, right? Like, it's freaking
Wow.
weird. It's weird. But I guess in relation to why I wanted to become a barber is because it wasn't necessarily the haircut that always drew me to the barbershop. It was the experience. And for me, like, my barber is currently one of the owners at MBS. I went to him, and then from then we just connected because we were really close via online gaming, and I didn't know that he worked at the place that he was working at. And from then on, like, he was always so friendly, so nice, and he would always treat me with such professionalism, yet treat me so friendly. And he knew where to draw the lines of, are we online friends or are we real life friends? And all in all, it was just a great experience for me to want to come back for more and more and more and talk to him more and more and more and more. And for me, I wanted to replicate that to my clients. I want to replicate that for my friends, my family, to kind of leave a name on this world in that sense. So that's kind of my take on why I wanted to become a barber.
That's awesome. I think that's really cool. And having not really grown up with barbershops, I definitely didn't necessarily go to Connie's or anything, but it was definitely more of a kind of in and out experience. I used to get just a buzz cut after 3 months, kind of like you. And it was kind of a small town scenario. So the lady would cut everyone in the town kind of thing. So it's interesting that even from that, you were attracted to the experience. It's probably later on when you connected with Devin, who is actually also one of my barbers, so shout out to Devin if you're listening, and everyone at MBS, because I think that the environment that you guys have created at MBS is quite powerful. I think that it really shows the amount of effort and care that you guys have for the community. You know, one thing that I really admired about everyone at MBS is that they weren't in it for the money. You know, they weren't in it just to make the fame, make it big, make it pop. And, you know, they really care about the community. And I think that's super, super important.
Yeah, and it's good that you mentioned like none of us did it for the money because, you know, why wanted to become a barber. I didn't say anything with anything financial. Yes, it may be a struggle, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later on, but that's definitely not the number one driving force as to why I want to become a barber.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
I definitely feel like, you know, when you're in a barbershop, like, you know, the actual experience of being in a barbershop is super important. I mean, like, I've been in several barbershops. MBS Saint is one of them. I've had a lot of, excuse me, holy crap. I've had a lot of experiences, like, actually, where I felt like let's say the aura or the atmosphere was really intimidating. You know, it's like, but I remember my specific experience at MBS, like, you know, I wasn't there last time I was there. I wasn't even getting a haircut. I was just watching Vince, you know, getting a haircut. But everybody was super friendly. Everybody made sure to say bye, you know, on their way out, that sort of thing. And you know, it really kind of like adds to the whole relationship, the kind of family dynamic of what a barbershop will welcome you in as, like, which I really appreciate. Because I mean, at the end of the day, man, like, your barber is like in control of a lot of aspects of like your life, like, you know, what you're gonna look like, whether or not you're gonna be able to land a date, you know, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Right? So
Exactly.
you know, I often feel like with my chosen barber, if I get a cut somewhere else, I feel like I'm cheating on my barber if I get a cut with somebody who's not my primary barber, kind of thing, right? So, you know, in a weird way, your barber is kind of like family, and and when you're going over to their place, getting your cut, you're among your family's place. You know what I mean? So that's
Exactly.
kind of how I feel about like the environment, like how environment kind of like really adds to the experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, personally, there's one good memory that I had MBS when you guys had just opened up. I remember I walked in and everyone was like, hey, and it was just like a big party. Everyone was, you know, I don't know if I should say this here, but everyone was having a little bit of Hennessy here and there. You guys had a couple of bottles laying around, so I figured, you know, there was a couple of bottles that had been consumed throughout some said time. Period of time, but yeah, it's just always awesome going into MBS, and like Danilo mentioned, everyone's really kind, so I think that's one of the reasons why I go back every time.
Just to add one thing, I remember I was at the MBS opening actually, because one of my friends, his girlfriend works there, and she's another barber of mine. It's Cam. And yeah, I remember waiting for my haircut. The guys over there were playing 2K. Like there's a PlayStation, by the way, just like in the waiting area. They welcome me to play, and I'm just like, yeah, sure, let's go at it. I suck at it, but like, let's go. You know, that sort of stuff is just like you're literally coming into somebody's house. You know what I mean?
Fun fact. I don't know if I should be saying this, but I'm the king of 2K at the shop. Just to add that.
Yo, everyone at MBS is gonna hate you for this.
Everyone at MBS.
But here's the thing. So we make jokes, right? We're like, oh, you should enter a tournament, and people are like, you know, the tournament. You know what the tournament should be? There should be an entry cost. If you can beat Marvin, you take the pot. That's what we joke around about sometimes.
That's literally.
Like,
wow.
It's something like that. It's like always like, oh, Marvin got this, or something like that. Like maybe I'm tooting my own horn, but like from what I'm hearing, that's normally what I'm hearing.
just watching the comment section, everyone from MBS is just like, hey, whoa.
add me.
That's hilarious. But yeah, it's hilarious how you guys are so competitive. I still remember when you guys were in that little attic like area across that temporary spot, and you guys were so
on
adamant on like so competitive, and I'm just getting a haircut and I'm like, it's hard not to get into the moment. But yeah, that's hilarious. That's awesome. Not to change the topic too drastically, but I kind of want to chat about you, because one of the things that we got talking about just when you were cutting my hair was, you know, like as a barber, you know, I go to you for a haircut. You know, I go to the barber for a haircut. Right. And personally, I feel like I've been very blessed in my life to have good barbers. So before, I was getting my haircut by Holly at VQ. And then Devin, I bumped into him when he was at Saint, and then followed him across to FFO. And then, I followed you guys over to MBS. And, you know, whenever he wasn't available, he would let me know that you'd be available and kind of slot me in that way. And then, you know, I kind of saw the value in both you guys. But regardless, the barber has a big impact on your life, I find, because, you know, even though you're just getting a haircut, there is conversation that's going to arise regardless, unless you just don't want to talk. But I'm curious to see from your perspective, what do you think your role, or how do you see being a barber from that aspect, like the social aspect of it, is, you know?
Well, first things first is I remember that day when Devin's like, "Can you cut Vince?" And I was nervous because I was just freshly graduated out of school. I was barely getting clients outside of school. So already right there there's a tension, because it's like, oh man, am I gonna, like, because I have to kind of deal with what's going on in my head. It's like, am I gonna be as good as Devin, or how does he do this, how does he do that, things like that. But all things aside, when it comes to social interaction and like how I kind of view it or approach it, is just be yourself. Like, I think the number one thing is people really try to mask who they are when it comes to meeting new people. I've learned the hard way that you don't always have to have a wall up when you're meeting new people. You don't always have to shut people out. You know, be open, be friendly. Like, when I saw that I was cutting you, I had a sense of comfort as well as the stress, because you were one of our regulars, and already on that aspect, I can kind of work off of what you've already given us. So when you think about it, you kind of just have to, how do you say this? When in school, we're trained to talk to our client via consultation, and then just basic conversation. How's the weather going? How's your ride here? Was it easy to book? Things like that. But then you start to realize when you get into the industry, you can push a little deeper. You know, you can get into the how's the family. You know, you can get into the nitty gritty of what do you do for a living, and you can relate to what they do for a living, because there's so many people that come into the shop that with a different story, and it's like, oh hey, like I know a person that does that. Let me share an experience that they had. Maybe it could help you, or maybe it's interesting to you. So the social interaction part is it. For me, it really came second nature, because I find that I don't really have trouble talking to other people. What I do find though is that people have trouble talking to me, because I've had a lot of people tell me that I'm at first glance really intimidating. I have a resting bitch face, and I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that holds any truth to it, but that's what I've been told. But that's my take on it.
I got a question for you. You mentioned kind of like earlier in what you were talking about that you learned the hard way, like that you got to be more open. What do you mean by that you learned the hard way?
So this is kind of going back into my past, like when, don't want to get too deep into like how like I was affected, but essentially you meet people and they're so easy to take what they want from you in terms of like maybe it be advice, or you know, they basically they take everything, how do you say, that could help them so that they can be on top of you, and that kind of hurt me, kind of deal, right? So that's for me saying I learned that the hard way, that opening up can hurt, but it doesn't always have to be a hurtful experience or a negative experience.
Right. And would you say that's something that you learned as a result of like becoming more social through like school and barbering and all that stuff?
100%, yeah. Um, because growing up, I would say that I was fairly outspoken. Um,
Mm.
I didn't really grow into to being so outgoing until I really found the confidence to do so. But then again, it's to say, where did I find that confidence, right? And from that, it's a lot of just trial and error and different experiences, meeting new people, and trying different things, right? Like maybe one day I just decided, fuck it, let me just be who I want to be, and not
Hey,
let anyone else decide who I should be.
That's
sheesh.
yeah, that's I think that's super powerful just in terms of like seeing it from your perspective, because when we walk into a barbershop, I feel like there's definitely the people who walk in, they're like, okay, just like get my haircut done. They literally don't care anything about you or your life. But like I
Hmm.
walked in, I remember, and Devin was cutting my hair at FFO, and you were just sitting on the side, like watching. And I remember I was asking you questions, and I was like, hey, like
Yep.
how'd you, what's your name? Like, what do you do, kind of thing. Because
Yep.
I'm more interested in people's stories. And one thing that you kind of shared last time we were there was something super interesting, which I had never heard about, but you had mentioned something about how barbers are like the first line of doctors. Like they've in the past they've been considered as doctors.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to a little bit elaborate on that.
Yeah. So a little brief history lesson here.
Ooh.
Barbers, around the medieval to the middle age time, they were considered barber surgeons at the time. So basically, same as you see today, you can go into a barbershop, get your beard trim, get a haircut, cool. But that also goes to the extent of I can amputate your arm if you have gangrene or something, or I can go to the lengths of what a real surgeon would do. But keep in mind, during the medieval to middle age times, these barber surgeons were they were either illiterate, some of them, most of them were not formally trained. So you can see where that's where it started, and it's like now you fast forward, where they're not barber surgeons anymore. That would be pretty messed up if you ask me. But I would say now we're more of like a barber therapist, like a pseudo therapist, like someone that hasn't have had any formal training in therapy. But coming from my perspective, it's almost like we are doing therapy just through our talking, or just through the haircut, the hair wash, the styling. It's all therapeutic in a sense, yet not formally trained to be a therapist.
Yeah, and I honestly think like, especially hearing how you said that, some people might have used you and you might have even been hurt in that environment, of you doing what you do. I can't even imagine how that must feel, how the pressure must feel, when you're cutting someone's hair and you're having to literally deal with that person's bullshit. Sorry for a lack of words, but you have like sometimes people will open up, and I've been blessed to have you and Devin to really be able to. I can express kind of some of the daily struggles that I'm going through without you guys judging me, and you guys giving me your own personal feedback on it. And I can come in the next time and still feel comfortable talking to you. It's not like, oh, well, Vince told me something weird last time about what he's going through.
Right.
But that, like, one, that I think that's empowering, because that shows how much an impact a barber can have in someone's life. But it's also a lot of pressure. But from your perspective, what do you think? Like, have you studied therapy? Like, what are your thoughts on how you've approached it as a therapist?
Well, it's funny because you talk about like dealing with people's
Mm-hmm.
bullshit, right? And all of us reach a breaking point, and there's actually a term used for that. It's called compassion fatigue. So
Mm-hmm.
what it is you when you reach a point like, oh, Jimmy, you cheated on your girlfriend with your wife, whatever, right? Like we hear those kinds of stories like all the day, right? All the time, sorry. But when you always have to listen and learn about their problems, try to understand it, and then try to give feedback, that's really draining from client to client to client to client. That can drain you. And coming from me, it's happened to me. Like I've reached a point, during a day where I sometimes I just lose it. Like I just lose that. I lose the feeling of compassion towards them. I lose the feeling of, sympathy, right?
Mm.
Like, and yes, it's an issue, but the problem is sometimes it's not our fault that it happens. And sometimes it's not always the client's fault that it happens. Maybe I was just hungry. Maybe I was just thirsty. Maybe I was just standing too long or didn't have a break. But usually dealing with clients, like for example, you, Vince, 100% fine. Like we're so friendly and open and welcoming that we're willing to listen to you. We're willing to understand, and we're willing to give the advice that we may give, whether it be correct or incorrect, because that's what's gonna make you feel good. That's what's gonna make the client feel like they're important, that they're valued.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I think one of the things that probably brought you that sense of comfort, and maybe Danilo, you can kind of bounce back and forth with this idea, but I walked in there understanding that you guys go through stuff as well. Like, you guys are human beings. And one thing I absolutely admired about Devin in particular was his hustle. Like the fact that he, I remember when his girlfriend was pregnant and she was, about to give birth to Alex. It was just awesome to watch him, because like you could tell that, like, if you're a barber, you have no sick days. Like, you have no sick days. You can't just call in sick and say, I'm not going to cut your hair. Because not only are you telling yourself you're not going to cut hair because you're not getting the money, because there is no vacation pay. There is no, well, from what I know at least, unless you're hired into like a company kind of thing. But the way you guys have it set up per chair kind of thing, there is no time off. But also you're impacting all these other people's lives,
Exactly, 100%.
And you don't show up once, that person goes to another barber, you lost that client. So, because they might have a better experience at another barbershop. So I really admired Devin, because you could tell he was tired, he was drained, and I'm not the typical like city Asian person, not to give any stereotypes, but I come from the country, French background, Japanese background. I came in there asking Devin all sorts of weird questions, and I'd be like, yo, bro, what do you think about, if this girl, and you can tell the guy he's like, bro, I just want to get through my day. It's like 5:30 p.m. I've been grinding since 10. And yeah, like, even if he was like, I really admired that. So I thought that it's really important to show that, you guys are also going through stuff. So whenever I'd walk into the barbershop, I would always, come in with empathy. And I think, to go back on my point where you felt maybe comfortable with me, is because I went in and asked about your problems. I'd always ask about your girlfriend. How's your girlfriend doing? How's your family doing?
Yep. Exactly.
I found out about this, I keep forgetting the name, this, not disease that you have, but that thing you and Mark have, I keep forgetting. But gout. Yeah, gout. Sorry, I keep forgetting. But
gout.
You guys have gout, and you guys are barbers. You guys have to stand all day long. And if I just come in here and just treat you guys like as if you guys are fine, like, no, like, even though I expect that experience coming into MBS, just because I've had such positive experience, that doesn't mean that, like, you guys are 100% going to be there all the time. And I want to communicate and be as much of a support to you guys when I'm going in as well. But I don't want to drag on too much. I think I talked a lot, but I don't know if you got thoughts on that, Danilo.
Well, I actually wanted to touch back on like the whole compassion burnout thing, right? Because I can actually relate to that, because I used to be in nursing, right? I'm not in it anymore. One of the reasons that I couldn't stand it anymore was part of that compassion burnout, like going from patient to patient to patient, having to research people's lives and like literally, actually learn about a person's condition head to toe, and then offer them service in probably one of the most difficult moments of their lives, right? And I definitely experienced compassion. Oh, I said compassion burnout, but it's compassion fatigue, almost the same thing. Yeah. But it's really interesting with the barber mentality too, because you're kind of interacting with people at, at a point where you're there to, like, I was interacting with people at the point where I'm trying to save their lives, and you're interacting with them at a point where you're going to improve their quality of life, essentially. And so much of that is reliant on relationship building, and I mean, at least for you guys, at least you don't have to like take it home every single day. Like Vince doesn't come in and like, pour out everything and then you're just lying awake at night staring at the ceiling, just like, man, that thing that Vince told me is weighing really hard on me, kind of thing. But you guys, I just have to, I mean, my what I'm getting at here is like, I have a real kind of admiration for the fact that you are really absorbing what people are having to go through, and I'm not saying that, like, versus like the hospital setting, right? Because their problems are immediate and solvable, right? Like their conditions are there to be taken care of at the moment, but you're invested in the long term with your clients. I mean, and that's the whole thing, relationship building too. Like, building a successful relationship with your client means that they're going to keep coming back to you, and maybe on your sick days they're going to be like, "No, I got to get my haircut with Marvin no matter what." You know what I mean? I just sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, like, not to get me wrong, but talk about your life, right? Like, for me personally, I feel like I've reached a certain like conditioning to it. So it's like I haven't really experienced that compassion fatigue. I have experienced it, but not in my recent days, because I feel like the more clients you see, the more stories that are being told, the more interest you see in it, and it's more or less like, I'm not trying to just get through this haircut because I don't know what I'm doing, so I gotta listen and I gotta do this haircut. Because that's where I used to be, right? I used to struggle. I used to take some hours to do a haircut, and having to listen to them talk for hours, it's hard. But now I can happily say I've shortened my times to around 45 minutes to an hour, give or take, and I can really give feedback. I can really listen and understand, and I can put myself in their shoes and kind of say my piece on a few things here and there.
Yeah, man. It truly is an art form. Like you're balancing psychology, sociology, like your own craft, and you're doing it long term, like with all your clients. But also at the same time, again, when going back to an environment, you actually get to do it in a place that feels like home, though. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious. What kind of impact do you think you have on people's mental health? Whether, like, do you think you're able to positively improve their life? Do you think what you're doing sometimes can have a negative impact? What are your thoughts on that?
To be completely honest, I feel like being a barber, and in relation to mental health for the client, I feel like I'm really powerful in that aspect. And not to take that negatively, but just gonna throw an example out there. I can give the most amazing haircut, and the person who's sitting in my chair can feel 1,000 times better. It's exactly the saying goes, look good, feel good. At the same time, I can accidentally give that guy a bald spot, and now his mental health has gone from all the way up here to down here, just like that. And I'm gonna be real. It's happened to me. Like, I've accidentally buzzed a bald spot into someone's head, and I've openly admitted it. And although it's a sucky feeling that I had to, give them that haircut free of charge and whatever, he's now a returning client, because it wasn't just the haircut, it was the experience that really brought it all together. So all in all, I feel like I have the power to really build someone's confidence, and I have the power to really take someone's confidence away. But of course, the latter, or the more positive side, of course, I would always love to build more confidence in my clients, and with that, it's more so give them the best haircut experience that you can. A really nice head massage. Really, like, don't be so heavy with your clippers. Don't jab them in the head. I've done that as well. And listen to them, talk to them, let them say what's on their mind. If they don't want to talk, that's cool with me too. But superficially, give them the most amazing haircut experience, and it always starts with that.
That's sick.
Respect your barbers, guys. I mean, you might get a bald spot.
Yeah, I think what I especially like about what you just mentioned is, when I came in for my haircut last time, you asked me what was the worst part about having, such long hair. 'Cause I personally think I look terrible. Some people would argue, but I didn't really like having that long hair, especially in the back area. It was, I showed you, and you that's like the throw up emoji. But you asked me like what was the hardest part, and I told you the mental aspect, because to me, I think like the biggest part of being obviously this from my perspective, but the biggest impact you have is not only just the haircut, because that's almost like expected, as you mentioned, give the best haircut that you can have, so that at least they have that standard that they can go up from. But
exactly.
I also feel like one of the biggest parts, the biggest impact you have is really through the communication, through the talking, and because they may not have any, because people typically don't necessarily go to therapists all the time. Like, it's not as popular as out there. So the only therapist that they might be seeing is their barber. So I feel like that, to me, is like one of the biggest impact a barber can truly have on someone's life. I mean, I don't want to diss the haircut aspect, because I think that's important, but I think that communication is also super important, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, so before, again, we mentioned a little bit about how mental health has been, something that a barber can have an impact on. But I'm just wondering, what has been your journey with mental health? How have you, because everyone has their own story. I don't know if you want to talk about a little bit about that.
Oh, no, it's fine. My journey with mental health. So, I'd say sometimes, even to this day, I can suffer from depression. I can suffer from anxiety. Where it stems from, I couldn't really tell you the true origin, but what I can say is I've lost a lot of people, and that, to me, that doesn't just mean death. It doesn't just mean someone passing. What it means is someone who's really close to you just doesn't want anything to do with you anymore, and in that sense, it makes you feel alone. And that's where I feel like my depression stemmed from. What sucked about it was you feel like you lose yourself in it. And when you lose yourself in general, you lose everything else that's in sight. So not only does it affect your mental health, it affects your self-development. You feel like you're just not good enough to reach a certain standard that someone may look upon you, or it may not even reach your standard, because you don't have that anymore. You've lost yourself, right? And I'll even touch on the fact that I used to self-harm, and like, I'm not proud of it, but I show my scars very happily because I'm not afraid to talk about it anymore. It's not something that really tears me down anymore. It's really something that builds me up. I love to talk about what I've been through, because I feel like my experiences can help others who may have gone through something similar, something worse. And if I can at least help that one person by saying that, that's amazing to me. But all in all, like, getting to where I am now, yes, it was difficult, but oh man, like, I couldn't tell myself, 5-10 years ago that I'm gonna be this happy. And
Wow.
it's liberating, it feels so, like I'm getting freed from my chains kind of deal. Like I can take on anything in the world. You know, it's such a confidence booster in saying that, like for me to be able to say that I am happy. I'm really happy to be where I am today compared to where I was back then.
Well, first of all, thanks for sharing that. That's one, super vulnerable and not necessarily the easiest thing to share, even though you might have been comfortable with it. I'm sure it's not like the first thing you want to talk about, on a podcast. But what are some of the things from your perspective do you think that might have contributed to that change? So like, going from a very depressed, negative state to now being able to say that you're happy and you're comfortable with life.
The first step for me was, and this can be different for everyone, but for me it was, since I was feeling alone, find someone who makes you feel like you're not alone. And I went to counselors at my school, and I went to various friends and family, and they can say everything is going to be okay as much as they want, but it truly will never be, it'll never feel like they're actually there until you feel that inside. So my first step was talking to a counselor, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, just talking to this one counselor, I would sit down to watch a basketball game or whatever, just by myself. Teachers would approach me and they wouldn't even talk to me about depression. They wouldn't even talk to me about any kind of mental health. They'll just ask me about my day. They'll just ask me about how I'm doing. How are things in life? How's so-and-so? How's basketball? How's exercising? Things like that. When you get past the line of, yes, there's a problem, but not talking about the problem, there's a significant change of resolving that problem. Because if I were to go to, for example, let's say you, Vince, and let's say you were dealing with depression. If I were to just bombard you with, oh, go see a counselor, or everything's going to be okay, don't worry, but I don't really care about what's actually going on in your life, I would find that pretty annoying, if you ask me. I wouldn't feel like it's a true help. I would feel like it's almost just an annoyance, like, get out of my face, like, I'll just deal with this on my own. It almost makes me feel even more alone. So the fact that all these teachers, all of these friends, family members are coming up to me, and they're actually talking to me about how like what I'm feeling rather than what I should be feeling, that's where things really started to change. And that's where I saw that I'm really not alone in this. I can see that people actually want me to stick around. They want me to be who I am, and they're not afraid to what's the word? They're not afraid to express themselves in order for me to express myself.
I really like that. They're not afraid to express themselves in order for you to express themselves. That's something I don't think I've heard before. And if I could mount that as a motivational quote on my wall, I think I would. Just to touch on that, man, like, just the fact that you came in here and you said, I can say that I'm happy, man, that makes me happy just hearing that. And like, like we literally just met like a week ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful what you just mentioned, because one of the things I've noticed with, making this podcast, which is, focused on mental health, and having to go out to people and actually talk about my problems, because I never wanted to talk about my problems. I feel like, I walk into MBS, like I said, I'm already thinking you guys have your own stuff going on. I don't want to add to that, right? But I've been noticing with a lot of people that the more I open up about my issues and what I'm going through, the more they're willing to open up to me. And I think that that's something I've experienced with you personally, where, I come in and you're like, hey, how's your day going? Instead of just being like, oh, it's good. I'm just working and just doing some shoots. I would typically tell you, like it's been a little bit hectic the last 3 weeks. We just came out of Arctic vortex, and have been feeling really overwhelmed and busy, and I don't know if I can handle all this. And you'd be like, oh, really? Like you were like, yeah, like, my family's been going through this too. And like, we would really get into these conversations, but I feel like breaking that barrier of me opening up, and obviously not me just like pouring out everything and just starting to cry in front of you, I don't think is the right approach, but tastefully sharing a little bit of what I've been going through and being super vulnerable, I think probably invites a little bit of that. So I think that's super powerful, what you just mentioned of like the quote, sorry, Danilo, if you can come through with that quote.
Expressing yourself for me to express myself.
Yeah, right. Exactly that. So like allowing people to express themselves by expressing yourself, by you taking that first step, I think is super huge. So that's pretty powerful.
Just to chime in one more time, that little point that you had mentioned too about, how people telling you what you should be feeling versus like, going out and doing something about what you're feeling, right? Just to contrast things, Vince has mentioned he was the kind of person who doesn't like to talk about his problems. I'm the kind of person who used to love talking about his problems all the time. It's like I used to go to a lot of people, actually, a lot of my closest friends, and I can relate to the whole, losing a close friend and kind of losing yourself, because it feels like you're basically losing a chunk of your investment of yourself into another person, right? So, I mean, in the past, I used to go to a lot of people, but my problem was that I didn't do anything about my problems. I would just toss it out there. People would give me advice, and I was just like, no, I didn't really move forward in terms of like, so it was just like a vicious cycle of like repeatedly, spouting out like problem after problem after problem. And again, like I'm a very firm believer in, people can give you the best advice that they could possibly give, but if you're not in the right mindset to receive it and do anything about it, then nothing is going to happen, right? So I thought that was like a really also interesting point that you touched on, because again, like you need to be able to receive the help as well in order to help yourself.
Yeah, and I'll also add to that, like, just exactly what you said. Like, you can't help someone that doesn't want to be helped. What I find really interesting, though, is just comparing, like, let's say, for example, how I was when I went to people for advice. It's exactly like your situation. You went to a lot of people. They give you almost the same advice. You never really follow it, because sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. But what I found that is when I started to empower myself and gain that confidence, when I would ask the same people the exact same question, that same advice almost just went from one ear just out the other. Like, I did not listen to it, because when you gain that confidence, you know what you have to do already. It's almost like you're just wasting time, asking people for advice, right? It's like, if I know what I have to do, why should I have to talk to anyone about it? I can just do it myself.
Right.
And I feel like that's super empowering. It's when you get to that level of confidence, when you get to that level of, I can do it. I don't have to tell anyone about my problems anymore. I don't have to rely on anyone to be my backbone. I can be my own backbone. I can support myself 100%. For sure.
And then the narrative then switches from you complaining about your problems to then all of a sudden now you can come to people and tell them about how you overcame them, which is why you're here too.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting, because I feel like I have lived most of my life thinking, I didn't need other people's advice, but then I think I was trying to battle also a little bit of that ego mentality where it wasn't necessarily because it was true. It was just me not wanting it, not wanting to admit that position. But that's a whole other podcast episode. I'm not going to dive into that. Yeah, I think that's super powerful that you were able to build that confidence, through and have that assertiveness of who you are and your ability to tackle problems and the challenges that life throws to you. So that's
100%.
Yeah, that's sick. I think that's something I'm personally working on for sure. I want to kind of redirect the conversation back to kind of barbers and stuff like that. And I'm going to try to make this a little bit of a conversation between the three of us. what does a haircut represent to you? Because even though you're a barber, you obviously get your own haircut as well. I'm pretty sure it's most of the time it's Devin who's cutting your hair, but
Right.
what does that represent to you? Like, what does a haircut represent or mean to you? How do you think that impacts your life?
Oh man, for me, it's just it's a look good, feel good. Just as I said earlier, like when I look good and I look at myself in the mirror, because that's one of the first things that I see in the morning, or first things that I see when I wake up. When I see that I'm looking fresh, man, I could tackle the world. That's what a haircut is to me.
Hey,
That's
yeah.
just superficially what a haircut means to me is when I look good, damn, I can do good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Uh,
second that motion. Go ahead, D.
Oh, I was just gonna say, for me, a haircut has a little more at stake than other than just getting a new look. Because one of the things that I deal with is I have eczema, right? And so I have, and it's particularly intense in the back of my neck. And so, like for example, I can't when my hair grows out, I can't properly moisturize the skin there, right? So, getting a haircut means, oh shoot, I can take care of that skin again. And because like when my hair grows out and I can't access that, like it becomes a whole world of problems. Like that skin remains dry. Like if my skin is dry, I don't feel confident in myself. That kind of thing. I mean, at the end of the day, like health wise, it's a hygiene thing, and I know like for me, I love like in any situation where I come out and I'm groomed and all that stuff, I feel good about it. But I also feel like, confidence wise, yeah, it's true. Like you feel like you can tackle the world again. And for me, like again, not only does a haircut mean I'm getting a new look, but my skin gets a chance to breathe. So there's like, that aspect of it too. But again, like I said earlier, like your body, like so much of your fate like lies in your barber's hands, right? So, and like
That's
the
true.
people that have cut my hair for the most part, I feel like I've selected my barbers pretty well. And so I'm pretty like there's so many the guy that cuts my hair now, Joel, right? Joel Natalk. I can literally be like, you know what? I'm gonna leave it in your hands. Give me what you think is good, and I don't have a shred of doubt that he's gonna make me look good. Like, even if he gave me like a haircut that didn't make any sense, which he's done before, um, you know, I can still like have that confidence in him, and because he has the confidence in himself that he's gonna make me look good. So it's like we're kind of playing off each other's kind of confidence, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a haircut to me, man. That's yeah, it's like the psychological aspect and the health and grooming aspect.
It's interesting how I want to give my 2 cents on what I feel like a haircut is, because I feel like I don't necessarily didn't grow up with the traditional, I was telling you guys that I used to just get a buzz cut. I think that was until I was 17 or 18 years old. I just get a buzz cut. I didn't really care about fashion. Most of my clothing came from Valley Village when I was growing up, and it wasn't really something that I particularly invested in. And I didn't really see it as a depiction of who I was either. That being said, growing older, going into university, I had to interact with more people, and I started seeing people, quote unquote, judge me for my appearance, whether it was my hair, whether it was my clothing, and it just started feeling a little bit uncomfortable to show up in certain environments, not blending in with people, not having the same clothing, not having the same haircut kind of thing. But, so I became very, what's the word? Like, not spiteful, but I became very, it just became very negative to me. Like, people are just trying to look good all the time. Like, it's what the media wants. I just became very negative. I would like trash that down, and I would like try not to do that as much as possible. I never really, dived into it. But I think to me, that's why, like, to me, MBS is so empowering, because it's not even just about the haircut. It's about the person who gave me the haircut. It's about how I got that haircut, the process of, booking it online and, going to see people and having that conversation with a person and coming out feeling fresh physically and mentally. It's not just a haircut to me. Like, to me, yeah, obviously, like, I felt terrible with such long hair. And, the day after I got my haircut, I started sending snaps to all these girls of me, hey, haircut, haircut. Just kidding. But, before the haircut, I told Danilo, like, I didn't want to go to the mall because, I was like fully, like hair full of, like, head full of hair. And like, I showed up at the mall and I had my hood up, and I just didn't feel comfortable. But afterwards, it's like day and night, snapped right away. But I also think that my experience of getting a haircut, I think, is also something I take very seriously. And I always appreciate you guys at MBS because I always come out of there feeling cleansed, not to sound too cliche. But
cleanse.
yeah.
This actually makes me feel like I haven't, like, I mean, I already respect barbers a lot, but like, I already feel like now I'm beginning to change my mindset. I'm like, man, you guys are super undervalued. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, like you got the therapy part, you have like the grooming part. I mean, I watched Vince get like a friggin' hand massage and all that stuff like last time. That was pretty sick. And I mean, most people pay freaking $40 an hour to go to therapy, that sort of thing, right? And then here you got this all-in-one package, like, for like probably less than $50 happening. I mean, like, geez, like I'm thinking of it this way, right? Like, people complain because like I grew up getting my haircut at Connie's, right? So everybody knows, going for like less than $15 haircut and you're in and out your G for like a while, right? But now I think about it, I'm like, man, like I hear people complain that $30 is too expensive for a haircut. I'm like, why are you complaining about $30 going in for a haircut when you're going in for an experience that's going to make you feel like $1 million? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Right. So, I mean, props to you guys. Props to all the barbers out there, especially like this generation of barbers who are more about the experience and the relationship and about the cuts too, because obviously that's something that has improved drastically over the years. Right. But yeah, shout out to you guys for kind of providing that. Like, again, super undervalued. And I'm just kind of like coming to that realization right now. So,
Yeah, and don't want to drag this on too much, but I just made the calculation right now. You're spending about like $1,000 a year on a barber. You're spending about like $900, give or take how much you go, how often you get your haircut. But to most people, that's a significant amount of money. Like that's an investment, and that's why to me, it's one, supporting people that I believe in, but also going there for an experience that's not just a good haircut, that's not just in and out type of scenario, and building a relationship. And the fact that you and I can off camera outside of the barbershop can call each other friends, and hopefully we can go for drinks, although you can't with your gout, so I still have those white
Make something work.
I still have those White Claws for you here.
White Claws.
But the fact that we can actually have this relationship, I think, is something I value a lot, and I really appreciate about MBS. So that's kind of, again, to wrap up the whole thing of a haircut isn't just a haircut. It's so much more.
No, love to hear it, and that's exactly what we intend to do, right? We're more than just barbers, and I'm not saying that we're just barber therapists or whatever. Just know that we're more than just barbers. We're still human beings, and we want to give you not just the best experience, but we want to elevate your life in some way, shape, or form. And hearing you guys, talk about your experiences, blessed.
Appreciate you, brother. Okay. Considering we're in a pandemic right now, and the impact that we kind of touched on that a barbershop can kind of have on the community individually, but overall, what do you think what kind of impact MBS has had to Winnipeg, during the pandemic, maybe even before, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, for one, I feel like during the pandemic, even though it's been super tough for some people, mentally, physically, emotionally, like just some people don't like being inside, and one thing that we offer is come out and say hi. We're always open just for people to come in, say what's up, talk to someone. We're always here with open arms. And when it comes to even just the literal sense, we have a pretty high store capacity. We can have plenty of people come in and give you guys a good experience, and then otherwise, in terms of the pandemic, for us, we were using it to grow. We started a book club and we started reading, and we were just finding ways to elevate ourselves in order to elevate our clients, elevate their experiences. So not only are we giving back to the community in that sense, we're giving back to us. We're continuing our education, making sure that we're not falling behind during the pandemic.
That's awesome.
Do you feel like bar or like the salons and all that stuff haven't been open for reopened for all that much long, right? But do you feel like when things open back up, has it been kind of like business as usual, or is there some sort of like new sort of like ambience or energy in terms of like how like your communities come back to you now that you can cut again?
No real change, surprisingly. I'd say initially, yeah, like there was sort of this cloud, you can say, this haze, this uncertainty that, it's like I have to watch out what I do because, one mistake and it's like someone might be watching and all of a sudden the shop's shut down because of, a health risk or something. But, otherwise, just as you said, business as usual. The one thing that a lot of us miss, though, is competing on the PS4 and, playing 2K against each other. And, we find time from here and there. But otherwise, like the clients, the staff, everyone is really happy to be back. And it just seems like another day.
That's sick.
Really shows like how consistent that your community has stayed despite everything that's happening. Hey,
exactly.
That's sick. All right, we could probably talk forever, and I have a few kind of quick answer questions. But before we ask those, where can people find you?
I am at MBS Barbershop, just based off of St. James. If you can just Google us, MBS Barbershop. My name is Marvin, but honestly, personally, like I'm happy if you just come by, like book with anyone. It doesn't have to be me, but of course it'll help me if you book with me. But no, we'd love to see you. MBS Barbershop, 1255 St. James. It's a pretty big sign. It's hard to miss.
All right. And if someone wants to reach out to you online, where can they find you?
I am on Instagram. Just Instagram. You can email me. I mean, primary thing is just Instagram. I mean, that's my portfolio of where I have my haircuts, my business info, phone number if you want to do booking, and that's at Marvin Borillo.
Perfect, sweet. Yeah, we'll definitely have the links below. Really quick fire questions. Really quick as we wrap this up. What's one aspect of mental health that you have struggled with?
One aspect of mental health that I've struggled with. I would say consistency. There's something called, I gotta look at it here. There's something called the Yerkes-Dodson law, and it's a graph that shows a U like this. So basically on one side, it shows you're doing too little, sleep, kind of you're bored, and the other side is you're way too stressed, you're panicking. But right up here is, the optimal performance, right? I've been teetering on both sides. I'd say lately, because when the pandemic, or when the lockdown ended, I was kind of in the panic mode, right? Like, oh my God, I got to get clients booked in now. And then now that things are kind of easy, it's like, now I'm like, how do I get up to that optimal performance if I don't have a client in my chair? And I think that's the main struggle that I have. And it takes a hit on my mental because, I also have bills to pay, and I also have to keep in check of my life. And if I can't do that, it really hurts my mental. But all things aside, I'm still really happy to be where I am. I'd rather be in this position than, where I was.
Right.
Second question, a quick fire question. What's one tip that you would give someone when it comes to mental health?
I would say, don't give up. I mentioned this quote in the form that I filled out. Everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. And it speaks really loud to me because it felt like nothing was okay. And I kept pushing. There was times where I couldn't do it anymore, but I just said, screw it. Like, let me just try to keep pushing on. Maybe someone or something can motivate me to do, to take the step from rock bottom, because that's where I was. I was down low. So the one thing I could say is just keep trying to find purpose.
Love that. Super powerful. All right. Yeah. Last question. Why is mental health important to you?
Mental health is important to me because that's kind of the driver of my life. It goes hand in hand with self-development. If you're not believing in yourself, if you're not 100% confident in yourself, I don't think there's any way that you can be the best version of yourself without your mental health in check. Some people just really neglect it. Like, for example, my parents, they didn't believe that mental health was a real thing, and that's growing up in a Filipino household. You can't really go to them for your problems sometimes because they don't believe that that's a thing that to really be concerned about. So yeah, we'll end it at that.
Love that. Marvin, we could probably talk to you for hours. And regardless of the little hiccups that we had at the beginning of the podcast, I think personally I really enjoyed the conversation. I really liked a lot of the things you said and relate to a lot of the things that you mentioned. And it's cool to see from a barber's perspective, kind of how you see how you can impact and people's lives and even their mental health or the way that they see themselves. So I think that was super powerful. I appreciate you, Danilo. I don't know if you have any other last words.
No, man, I just want to say thank you for joining us on Coffee Chat. Like, it was an experience meeting you in person. It was an experience having you on the pod. Considering that, like, you and Vince have been friends for quite some time, and I just recently met you, it was great to see your insight on the whole barber game and, like, the mental aspect of it. It was really enjoyable for me. So,
awesome.
All right. Appreciate you, brother. We're going to let you do your thing. If you guys haven't already, go check out my boy, Marvin. If you guys are in Winnipeg, go get your cuts from him. Him and pretty much, as he mentioned, anyone at MBS do a phenomenal job. So definitely go check them out. You can also find him on Instagram as well. If you haven't already, also consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. Check us out on Spotify if you want to listen to more podcasts, more insightful minds like Marvin here. Drop a like, drop a comment if you've had an experience with a barber that's positive or negative, or what are your thoughts on, what is a haircut? What does that represent to you? Even the ladies, if you guys want to chime in, it's been three guys talking on here, but I'm sure that, there's a whole aspect that we kind of didn't even touch on when it comes to haircuts and all the hair dyeing and everything and all those things that, men do as well, but women will do maybe a little bit more frequently than us. Me personally, at least, I've never dyed my hair, so can't really speak for that. But yeah, feel free to drop a comment and let us know what you think. And with that, I will leave you boys, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.
All right, cheers, boys.
Cheers.